welcome to the 2017 Easter Retreat with Bhante Vimalaramsi. Tonight's talk will be the Anupada Sutta, number 111, one by one as they occurred.
This is my favorite sutta because this gives you the explanation of what happens at each level as you go deeper. Thus have I heard on one occasion the Blessed One was living at Sawati in Jeta's Grove, Anathan Pandika's park. There he addressed the monks thus. Monks, venerable sir, they replied, the Blessed One said this. Monks, Sariputta is wise. Sariputta has great wisdom. Sariputta has wide wisdom. Sariputta has joyous wisdom. Sariputta has quick wisdom. Sariputta has keen wisdom. Sariputta has penetrative wisdom. Now, every time you hear the word wise or wisdom in Buddhist literature, it's talking about understanding of the links of dependent origination. You can't look up the word wise or wisdom in a regular dictionary because it's not going to give you this kind of understanding. During half a month, monks, he gained insight into states one by one as they occurred. Now, Sariputta's insights into states one by one as they occurred was this. Here, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, that means hindrances, Sariputta entered upon and abided in the first jhana, which is accompanied by thinking and examining thought, with joy and happiness born of seclusion. And the states in the first jhana, the thinking, the examining thought, the joy, the happiness, the unification of mind, the contact, feeling, perception, formations, and mind. Now, this is commonly called the Five Aggregates. And the reason that they put the word contact instead of body is because this happens all the way through all of the jhanas up to the 8th jhana, up to the realm of neither perception or non-perception. When you go past the 4th jhana, you're in, including the 4th jhana, you're in a mental realm. So you don't have a body then. But if there's contact, you will feel it. I'll explain this as we go along. The 4 foundations of mindfulness and the 5 aggregates are one and the same thing. So while he was in the jhana, he was experiencing the 4 foundations of mindfulness. There's a lot of misunderstanding with this particular sutta, and tomorrow you'll get to see what I'm talking about. The enthusiasm, decision, energy, mindfulness, equanimity, and attention, these states were defined by him one by one as they occurred. Known to him, those states arose, known they were present, known they disappeared. So what he's talking about here is the impermanence of everything. Everything is in a state of change. He understood thus. So indeed these states not having been come into being, having been they vanished. Regarding those states he abided unattracted. He didn't hold on to anything. unrepelled. He didn't push anything away, which is what we really want to do when a meditation pain arises. But the truth is, you have to be unrepelled. You don't try to force it away. If you try to force away an unpleasant feeling or a painful feeling, you're taking it personally. You make that feeling bigger and more intense. So, with the instructions that I've given you, you allow that feeling to be there. Don't keep your attention on it. When you develop your balance of mind, your equanimity, it's not going to be a real painful experience because you have this balance and you're not getting involved with it. You're not taking it personally. You're not trying to make it go away. You're just letting it be there by itself. It will fade away on its own. So, independent, detached, free, dissociated, all of these are describing the impersonal nature of everything. Everything on the human existence is impersonal. What makes things personal? Craving. This is why it's so important that you use the 6 R's. You're letting go of that false belief in a personal self. Sadness comes up, anxiety comes up, dislike comes up. If you take it personally, you can look forward to a lot of suffering. When you allow it to be there by itself and don't keep your attention on it, it will go away by itself. And you start to see that everything on the physical plane is impersonal. Now, your mind has had how many lifetimes of thinking that it's in control of everything. And when you start seeing the impersonal nature of everything, when you let go of the craving, all of a sudden, your mind starts to realize it's not in control anymore. Everything happens because of a process. And that process is how the links of dependent origination arise and pass away. And we'll get into more of that in a little bit. With a mind rid of barriers, when you're in the jhana, you don't have any hindrances arise. If you start feeling restlessness, you're not in the jhana anymore. Don't sit with your legs crossed. And you have to work with the 6 R's to let go of that false belief in a personal self. He understood there's an escape beyond this first stage. And with the cultivation of that attainment, he confirmed that there is. Again, with the stilling of thinking and examining thought, Sariputta entered upon and abided in the 2nd jhana, which has self-confidence and stillness of mind, without thinking and examining thought, with joy and happiness born of collectedness. I don't use the word concentration very often, because if I use the word concentration, it's misunderstood. Everybody will talk about one-pointed kinds of concentration. Now, this one-pointed concentration, when you start getting into the jhana, the force of the concentration is so strong that it suppresses hindrances. Now, hindrances are where your attachments are. And you have to learn that the relaxed step in the 6 R's is most important. That's the most important part of the 6 R's. The second noble truth, the first noble truth, is quite often said, all life is suffering. And that's not what the first noble truth is. There is suffering in life. Nobody has to have a PhD to see that sort of thing. The second noble truth is there's a cause of the suffering. What is the cause? Craving, taking it personally, identifying with it, getting caught up in your thinking about it, and your emotional tendency that arises right after the thinking about. So when I talk about concentration, I change that definition to collectedness. What is a collected mind? A collected mind is a mind that's very composed. It's a mind that's still, and it's a mind that's very pure. Why is it pure? Because you've let go of the craving. And this is the third noble truth. This is how you have the cessation of suffering arise, by letting go of the craving. Now, these are all things that you're going to understand personally when you're doing the meditation. You're going to see it for yourself. And you're going to start to understand that the Four Noble Truths are not just these 4 things to think about generally, because every link of dependent origination has the Four Noble Truths in it. And that will get explained a little bit later as we go deeper into the practice. Now, when you get to the second jhana, I will tell you to let go of verbalization. This is the noble silence jhana. You're going to have more confidence in this practice because you're going to have joy arise and it's going to be stronger. And you'll start to feel so light in your mind and light in your body, you're going to feel like you're floating. I have somewhere around 3,500 students. And there's been 3 students that actually did float when they got into this joy. They were so light. They would be sitting on the chair or whatever, and all of a sudden they're up off the ground a couple of feet. And they'll be there for a little while, and then they'll settle back down, and then it'll come up again. Don't look for it to be happening. I mean, it can happen, but it doesn't happen for many people. Okay? And don't be attached to your joy. Joy is a very happy feeling. It has a lot of excitement in it. And the way it's described in one of the commentaries is, you're walking in the desert and you've been without water for quite a while. And in the distance you see an oasis. Now every step you take, your mind starts to get more excited because there's some water. I can take care of this thirst. So there's some excitement in it. This is the lower kind of joy that arises from mental development. When you get to the oasis, you jump into the water, and the water is exactly the right temperature. And your mind goes, and becomes very peaceful and calm. And your body goes, That's what the Buddha called happiness. It's when your body becomes, and your mind become very peaceful, very placid, like there's no ripples in the water at all. And it's very comfortable. And because of that, you begin to have more confidence. You start to see, this stuff really does work. And it works very nicely. And you start to go, and you start getting a little bit excited about it. You start to get your enthusiasm up. And this self-confidence starts to express itself not only while you're sitting, but you start to have more confidence in things while you're doing them. Your mind has more peace and calm in it. You start to understand this process more and more easily. And the states in the second jhana, the self-confidence, the joy, the happiness, the unification of mind, the contact, feeling, perception, formations, and mind. There's the 4 foundations of mindfulness again. The enthusiasm, decision, the decision you're starting to make is whether to use the 6 R's now or not. Now, as I told you before, if you're staying with your object of meditation and thoughts come up, if they don't pull your attention away from your object of meditation, just ignore those thoughts. And this is where the decision comes. Should I 6R these or not? But when your mind gets pulled away from your object of meditation and you get lost in your story, whatever it happens to be, now you have to 6R and then come back. Okay? And that's what the decision is all about. Energy, mindfulness, equanimity, and attention, these states were defined by him one by one as they occurred. Known to him those states arose, known they were present, known they disappeared. He understood there's still more to do, and with the cultivation of that attainment, he confirmed that there is. Again, with the fading away of joy, what happens is the joy doesn't arise anymore. It's too coarse a feeling for your mind at this time because you're starting to get more subtle. Sariputta abided in equanimity, mindful and fully aware. Now what this means is you start to have more and more balance in your mind. You'll still hear things outside. If somebody comes by on a motorcycle, you'll hear the sound, but it doesn't make your mind shake and go to it. You just recognize that that sound is there. And your mind has this very nice balance to it. Still feeling happiness with the body, he entered upon and abided in the 3rd jhana, on account of which noble ones announce he has a pleasant abiding, who has equanimity and is mindful. Now, the pleasure that happens with the body is this. As you start to go a little bit deeper, you're going to start losing feeling in different parts of your body. Your hands are going to disappear. An arm will disappear. A leg will disappear. What's happening is that as you relax more in your mind, the tension that's in your body starts disappearing. And that's what you're feeling when you feel your body. Now, that doesn't mean that your body has disappeared and it's gone. If there's any contact, an ant walking across your hand, you will feel that. And this is a subtle kind of feeling, not the gross feeling your hands while you're sitting in meditation. There's a lot of healing that happens in the third jhana. And the states in the third jhana, the equanimity, the happiness, the mindfulness, the full awareness and unification of mind, the contact, feeling, perception, formations, and mind. There's the four foundations of mindfulness while you're in the jhana. The enthusiasm, decision, energy, mindfulness, equanimity, and attention. These states were defined by him one by one as they occurred. Known to him those states arose, known they were present, known they disappeared. He understood there's still more to do, and with the cultivation of that attainment, he confirmed that there is. Being aware of what's happening in the present. Knowing that there's a sound out there. Not trying to analyze the sound or think about it, but just being aware of it. Okay?
When he uses the word attention, is that sati? Is that mindfulness?
Yes. But he also uses the word mindfulness in there too. But that's just, it's just a repetition kind of thing. Okay. Now, when you get through the third jhana, the way you tell that you're not in this jhana anymore is you're not going to feel the loving kindness in your heart anymore. The feeling of loving kindness is going to move up into your head. You still stay with your spiritual friend, but I'm going to change your meditation when you get to the fourth jhana. The fourth jhana is a real important stepping stone. When you get to the fourth jhana, you're going to be able to understand a lot more about your reading of Buddhism. You'll figure out what somebody says about, this is what Buddhism is, and you'll look at that and you go, no, that's not right. Because you have the direct experience. I'm real big on direct experience. I want you to understand what that experience is. And you'll be able to pick up some of the suttas and read them and understand what the Buddha was talking about, because you will have this direct experience. It's real important. Again, monks, with the abandoning of pleasure and pain, with the previous disappearance of joy and grief, Sariputta entered upon and abided in the fourth jhana, which has neither pain nor pleasure, due to purity of mindfulness, due to equanimity. So now you're going to be changing your object of meditation to what we call breaking down the barriers. And I'll explain that when you get there. Then I'm going to give you some further instructions after you've done this. And that is, now I want you to radiate loving kindness to all beings in 6 directions. All beings in front of you for 5 minutes. All beings behind you for 5 minutes. All beings to the right for 5 minutes. To the left for 5 minutes. Above for 5 minutes. Below for 5 minutes. After you get done with that, then I want you to radiate loving kindness to all beings in all the directions at the same time. It's like being in a bubble and just radiating around everywhere. That's when your meditation starts to get to be real fun. And the states in the 4th jhana, the equanimity, the neither painful nor pleasant feeling, the mental unconcern due to tranquility, the purity of mindfulness and equanimity and unification of mind, When you get to the 4th jhana, your mind is going to have very strong balance in it. There's going to be still full awareness. You're going to be able to stay with your object of meditation for longer periods of time without having distractions. The enthusiasm, decision, energy, mindfulness, equanimity, and attention, these were defined by him one by one as they occurred. Known to him those states arose, known they were present, known they disappeared. He understood there's still more to do, and with the cultivation of that attainment, he confirmed that there is. So you get to the 4th jhana, you know there's still more. And this is when it starts to get real fun and real interesting. Again, with the complete surmounting of gross perceptions of form. When you're sitting and you can feel your hands and your arms and these other things, that's gross perception. When there's contact, that's subtle perception. With the disappearance of gross perceptions of sensory impact, unless there is some impact to one of the senses, unless there's a touching at one of the senses, it won't arise. Aware that space is infinite. Sariputta entered upon and abided in the base of infinite space. Now what happens is the feeling of loving kindness is going to change to a feeling of compassion. I'm not going to describe what compassion or how it's different. You have to tell me. Okay? And you're going to have a feeling that happens in your head where there's an expansion going out in all directions at the same time. And it's just going to keep going out and out and out. And this is what the Buddha called compassion with infinite space. One of the things that happens with the Mahayana tradition is they talk a lot about infinite compassion. And they have their different definitions of what that means. But it's just a misunderstanding. It's compassion with infinite space. This is what the Buddha sat in for a couple hours every day. And radiating it out. Infinite. It'll keep going and going. Now your mind is going to be able to stay with this feeling of compassion for a period of time. If you break your sitting, You come back and you start sitting again. Then you use compassion as your object of meditation. The feeling of infinite space will go out, and you'll be able to sit for a period of time that way. And the states in the base of infinite space. Perception of the base of infinite space and unification of mind. The contact, feeling, perception, formations, and mind. Now you're in an arupa jhana. You no longer have feeling in your body unless there's contact. Now, each one of these jhanas, you can carry it with you when you're doing your walking meditation, when you're doing your eating, when you're doing any kind of daily activity. You can carry that feeling of each one of these jhanas when your mindfulness is reasonable. Contact, feeling, perception, formations, and mind. Now that even though you're in the arupa jhanas, you're still experiencing the four foundations of mindfulness. The enthusiasm, decision, energy, mindfulness, equanimity, and attention, these states were defined by him one by one as they occurred. Known to him, those states arose, known they were present, known they disappeared. He understood there's still more to do, and with the cultivation of that attainment, he confirmed that there is. Again, by completely surmounting the base of infinite space with compassion, aware that consciousness is infinite. Sariputta entered upon and abided in the base of infinite consciousness. When you get to this stage, the feeling of compassion will change by itself to a feeling of joy. Now, this is not going to be the same kind of joy you experienced in the lower jhanas. This is the awakening factor of joy. It is a happy feeling, doesn't have so much excitement in it. Now, infinite consciousness is real interesting because when you get to see infinite consciousness, you're going to start seeing flickering at one of the sense doors. And that flickering is going to be real fast. And what this is the arise and passing away of individual consciousnesses. That was roughly 100,000 arising and passing away of the ear consciousness. So it happens really fast. But your mind is starting to see more and more clearly how all of these things actually work. Now, this is a real interesting state to be in because we talk a lot about impermanence and everything is in a state of change. But when you see this, you see it up close and personal. And you're going to see individual consciousness arise and pass away, arise and pass away, arise and pass away. Now, this also tells you why we don't go along with reincarnation. Reincarnation implies having a permanent soul that just goes from lifetime to lifetime. But when you see individual consciousnesses arise and pass away, you're going to see birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. And that's why we don't say anything about reincarnation in Buddhism. We call it rebirth. But it happens so fast, you think you're seeing me and hearing me at the same time. But you're not. When you get to this state, you'll start to realize that. And because there's some disturbance of mind, of this arising and passing away, it is a form of suffering. And you're going to see that there's no controller. This is all happening by itself. I don't have anything to do with it. It's happening on its own. So you're seeing for the first time something that's not a philosophy, but a reality of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and the impersonal nature of everything. It's quite heavy-duty insights that you get. And the states in the base of infinite consciousness with joy. The perception of the base of infinite consciousness with joy and unification of mind. The contact, feeling, perception, formations, and mind. So you still have the four foundations of mindfulness, even at this deep level. The enthusiasm, decision, energy, mindfulness, equanimity, and attention. These states were defined by him one by one as they occurred. Known to him, those states arose, known they were present, known they disappeared. He understood there's still more to do. And with the cultivation of that attainment, he confirmed that there is. So you know you're progressing very well. You're starting to understand on deeper and subtler levels how this process really does work. Again, by completely surmounting the base of infinite consciousness with joy, aware that there is nothing. Sariputta entered upon and abided in the base of nothingness. Now, this is where mind stops looking outside of itself. And the feeling of joy changes to a very strong feeling of equanimity. And this is one of the more interesting states of meditation to be in. Now you take you take the equanimity as your object of meditation, and if you put too much effort in watching the equanimity, your mind is going to start to get restless and you get knocked out of that state. If you don't put quite enough effort in staying with that object of meditation, your mind is going to get dull. So this is where there's the balancing factor. Okay? Now, a lot of people complain to me about restlessness. So I'm going to read to you what it says in the suttas about restlessness. or 1706, I don't remember. Okay. Now, this talks about what to do with the awakening factors and how to balance your mind with the awakening factors. The excited mind, restlessness, what it's untimely to use. Okay. On an occasion, monks, when mind becomes excited, it is untimely to develop the awakening factor of investigation of your experience, the awakening factor of energy and the awakening factor of joy. For what reason? Because the mind is excited. And it's difficult to calm your mind down with those things. Then we go to the excited mind, what to use in a timely manner. On an occasion, monks, when mind becomes excited, it is timely to develop the awakening factor of tranquility, the awakening factor of still collectedness, the awakening factor of equanimity. For what reason? Because mind is excited, and it's easy to calm it down with those things, with tranquility, collectedness or stillness, and equanimity. So when you have a lot of restlessness, you're putting in too much effort, too much energy. You're trying to 6R too much, and it just makes the restlessness stay longer. So what I tell people to do is to bring up a feeling of tranquility. I like that one the best because it seems to work fastest. And stay with the equanimity as your object to meditation, but add the wish of tranquility. Bring that feeling up, put it with your object of meditation, and the restlessness will fade away fairly quickly. So I don't want to hear any more complaints about being restless. Okay?
Who is the wish for?
It's just a wish. It's just a feeling that you bring up.
What is the difference between tranquility and equanimity?
Equanimity is strong balance. That's already your object of meditation when you're in this particular state. So stay with your object of meditation instead of letting your mind flitter away. But it's easier to bring up the feeling of tranquility. It's peaceful, calm. Okay? Oh, just so you know, there are some forbidden words. Try is one of them. Okay, I don't want you to try anything. I want you to do it or don't do it. Make up your mind. When you say, I'm going to try to do it, you're leaving yourself open to fail. So, do it or don't do it. And I prefer to hear, yes, I'll do it. Another word that's a forbidden word is, I'm bored. Who's bored? Who's lost their mindfulness? Who's not staying on their object of meditation? Who's causing themselves suffering? So you'll be able to get to all of these states that I'm talking about in this retreat if you follow the directions I'm giving you. And I know that you'll be able to do it, a lot of you, because you have some confidence. You know by being here more than one time, you know for yourself, this does work. You just need a little bit more time. Yeah.
Could the tranquility feeling be the result of the 6 R's that we are all familiar with?
Yes, but it's done in a sloppy way. It's not done with real. I mean, you can get into the habit of just zooming through and expecting something to happen, but you're still holding on to the amount of energy you're putting in. It means you use your 6 R's too, yeah. But you need that tranquility feeling when your mind is excited. Too many people try to use the 6 R's as a stick to beat things away and stop them from coming up, and it doesn't work. The 6 R's are only for your observation, but there's still some attachments in there of putting in the same amount of energy. This is one of the reasons that this particular state is quite interesting, because when your mind is in perfect balance, your mind will get very deep and you'll start to see all kinds of wonderful things. I'm not going to tell you what you'll see. You have to tell me. Okay, I'm not going to give everything away to you, because you can start making up stories if you know what's going to happen next. Anyway, another forbidden word, or pair of words, yes, but. It actually makes me upset to hear that. Because you want to argue with me. No. Get your butt out of the way. So, don't use those words. I will come down on you if you do. Yeah.
So you're speaking about restlessness in the higher jhanas,
I'm talking about restlessness anytime.
but the object of meditation, being equanimity, wouldn't happen in the lower jhanas. So I thought that
Well,
was
the
a prescription
equanimity,
for restlessness in the upper jhanas.
equanimity happens in every jhana. It's just different degrees of it.
So this is for any time you feel restlessness arise.
Right,
You can use what you just said.
right, tranquility. That really seems to be the easiest and the best. And I do understand tranquility, or the restlessness, and I also very much understand sloth and torpor. Now, if you have sloth and torpor, the other factors of awakening are very important. Investigation of your experience. How does sloth and torpor arise? You have to use the 6 R's with it, of course. You have to pick up your energy in staying with your object of meditation. And when you do that, joy will start to arise, a happy feeling. So with sloth and torpor, you use the 3 of the beginning factors of awakening. And you use 3 of the later factors of awakening. The first factor of awakening is mindfulness. and that's always used. So that's with each one of the awakening factors. When the factors of awakening all get in perfect balance, that's when you'll attain Nibbana. You might not recognize it as that while it happens, but that is how it happens. And the states in the base of nothingness, perceptions of the base of nothingness with equanimity and unification of mind, contact, feeling, perception, formations, and mind. You still have the four foundations of mindfulness here. Isn't that amazing? When I show you the four foundations of mindfulness tomorrow, you're going to see it has not much to do with vipassana. It has to do with the jhana practice. And you'll see that. The enthusiasm, decision, energy, mindfulness, equanimity, and attention, these states were defined by him one by one as they occurred. Known to him, those states arose, known they were present, known they disappeared. He understands there's still more to do, and with the cultivation of that attainment, he confirmed that there is. Now, what happens next is the equanimity will disappear. And what happens for a lot of people is they'll get into a state of like being asleep and being aware at the same time. And then that will fade away after a while, and your mind just becomes exquisitely quiet. And this can happen for a long period of time. Every time you see a little movement of mind's attention, relax.
Say that again.
Relax.
Relax. He said.
Now you're getting close to the experience of Nibbana. This is when I'm going to encourage you to start sitting even longer. 3 hours, 4 hours. Now people ask me why. Sitting that long can be a real painful experience, but not when your mind is settled. It can happen so that you can sit for 4 hours, you come out of the meditation and felt like it was about a half an hour. It's pretty amazing. The reason you sit longer is you need the time with the quiet mind. When your mind is exceptionally quiet, this is where people complain about being bored. I want something to happen. But this is where your mind is most pure. You don't have any craving in your mind. You don't have any movement of mind's attention at all. Your mind is exceptionally pure at that time. As you do this, you'll get to a state where everything just stops. You're not going to be able to experience anything. You won't know you're in that state till you come out. This is called the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness. It won't happen for very long. When you come out, you're going to feel a very strong feeling of relief, like you've taken off a heavy weight that you didn't even know you were carrying.
Is that winking out? Is that
What do you think cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness means? That means, and you don't know you're in that state because there's no consciousness. It doesn't happen for very long. It can be 2 minutes, or it can be 5 minutes, or it can be 10 minutes, but it's not very long. When you come out of that state, then the feeling, perception, and consciousness arises again. And you will feel that something very special has happened. And you'll feel this strong sense of relief. Right after that, and this doesn't happen for everybody at the first stage, but there's like little tiny bubbles or movements very fast. There's going to be a bunch of them. And then joy arises. And this is going to be a real wacko kind of joy. Okay, this is going to be very strong, and it's going to last for a while. Yeah. Yeah, just like bummer is. And you're going to come to me, and you're going to be real excited. And then I'm going to ask you some very specific things. And if you answer them correctly, I'm going to say congratulations. You have become a Sotapanna. What does it mean to be a Sotapanna? Now, you're never going to be reborn lower than a human realm. You're only going to have 7 more lifetimes. And that includes the Devalokas and the human realm. Your perception of things is going to change. You're going to look out at the trees and you go, boy, I don't ever remember seeing the color so bright. You'll start to see things more clearly. You're never going to have doubt arise that this is the right path. It's not going to arise again. If you tell other people that you have this experience, they're going to try to talk you out of it and say, you don't know what you're talking about. No, that's not right. But you know you have this experience, and you know that this is the right path. You will understand that rites and rituals do not lead to Nibbana. They don't lead to getting off the wheel of samsara. And you're going to see the impersonal nature of things, everything, thoughts, feelings. Everything is impersonal. You're still going to have some attachments to this, but you're going to understand deeply that everything is impersonal. But there's going to be times when you'll have, in your daily life, you'll have some kind of experience where anger arises or some unwholesome state arises, but it doesn't last as long. And you start recognizing it more quickly, and you start letting go more easily. You're going to keep your precepts very closely. Doesn't mean you can't break them. You can. But you'll feel so guilty that you're going to run to the teacher and say, I just broke a precept. So we have remedies for that. And that is giving you the precepts again with the determination not to do that again. your understanding is going to be much improved. Understanding of how everything actually does work. You'll be able to pick up the suttas and understand more of what they're saying. And it really gets to be kind of fun. So you get this book, this is the middle-length sayings. And it's my main book because all that you need to attain Nibbana is in this book. But say you just open it up to a page and you go to a sutta and you say, okay, I wonder what this sutta says. And it's kind of magical because it'll give you some understanding that you didn't have before. And you'll be able to see it and you'll be able to understand it much more easily. You become more accepting of things, not fighting with them so much. You won't have as much tendency to do unwholesome things. Your mind becomes more uplifted. Your mind becomes much more clear. Now, after you tell me this and after I congratulate you, then I'm going to tell you, okay, go back and sit. But the joy you have makes it hard to sit because you feel so good. I don't care. 6 hours that, go back and sit. The joy will stay with you for a few days. But you start to get used to it. And then you don't notice it so much. And I'll tell you, now I want you to do the equanimity meditation in the 6 directions, but just for 2 minutes in each direction. And then all directions at the same time. And then that will fade away, and then you take mind as your object of meditation. Now, one of the things that I forgot to tell you when I was talking about this at first, before the experience of Nibbana, when you break your sitting after 3 or 4 hours of sitting, before you get up, reflect on what happened while you were in that state. Because this is called neither perception nor non-perception. Sometimes you see things, you perceive them, other times you don't. But when you start reflecting on what happened during this sitting, you'll see some things that you missed when you were using your 6 hours. And 6 hours then. This only takes a couple of minutes, no big deal. Now, when you sit longer, I want you to get more exercise. This is real important. Because you sit for 3 or 4 hours, all the blood starts to settle down in your legs. So when you get up and start moving around, I want you to move around with a lot more energy. Stay with equanimity while you're doing it. But I want you to run up the mountain. I want you to run up and down stairs, walk really quickly, so that your heart starts beating a lot and you are breathing through your mouth. Now, this will help your next sitting a lot because you're putting more oxygen into your blood, and that oxygen goes to your brain so your mind can be much more peaceful and calm. And it is important to do that. You don't have to sit or you don't have to walk for long periods of time, but you have to walk with energy. Okay? Now, one of the things that it doesn't seem to matter whether it's in a cold country or a hot country, you need to drink more water. I don't know, do we have sea salt here?
No,
We need to get some.
it's on the list.
Okay. So you take a little bit of sea salt and mix with the water. It'll change the flavor a little bit, but what it does for your body is much more important. The water molecules can go into the cells much more easily when it has a little bit of sea salt with it. And if you start to get hungry in the evening, instead of trying to sneak some food, drink water. And that'll take care of that want for something. Your body is actually telling you in the evening, I need more water. But you always misread it and you go get some potato chips or pretzels or some kind of candy or whatever whatever munchie you're used to. But your body is actually telling you, I need more water. Now, the formula that this doctor gives, he heals amazing amounts of things with just water, and including cancer. He suggests that you take your weight, let's say you weigh 100 pounds. You divide that in half. That's how many ounces of water you should drink in a day. And you'll start to feel much better. You'll wind up going to the bathroom a little bit more than you used to, but eventually your kidneys adjust and your bladder adjusts so you don't have to do it quite as often. And just drink it in sips. You don't want to drink a full liter of water at one time. Just drink a little bit every now and then. That also helps your meditation because you're putting more oxygen into your system. So that helps your meditation to get better.
Can we bring water in here?
Well, there is water in here.
No, but I mean, drink it in here. Water
Well, sure, why not?
Oh,
And you just reach for a thing of water. Huh?
There's a slight contradiction for a man over 50 years old to drink a lot of water and sit for 4 hours.
Not really. Believe me. When I
Get up and go pee.
no,
Just sit there and eat.
Not in this room, no.
I'm 70 years old and I don't have that kind of problem. Okay. When I start sitting, I can sit for 5 or 6 hours. And I've been drinking water all day. I have a tendency to get up at nighttime between 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning and sit till 7. And I don't have any problem with having to go to the bathroom. But if worse comes to worse, a catheter works great.
put that on the list, Michelle.
Meditation depends.
So, as you drink more water and you get used to it, you don't have to go near as often. Okay? Now, I will tell you to go back and start sitting, and you start sitting, and you can have this cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness happen again. The first time it happens, this is called path knowledge. The second time it happens, that's called fruition knowledge. With the fruition knowledge, it sets being a Sotapanna very firmly. And you become more aware of how things work. You have more and more confidence that this is the right path. So you come and tell me that that happened, and I'll congratulate you. You'll still have a lot more joy coming up. You'll start to see the links of dependent origination a little bit more easily. And I'll tell you, good, excellent, go sit. Now, how long does it take to go from path knowledge to fruition? I've had a few students that it happened in the same sitting. I've had a few students that it was the next day. I've had a few students that it was the next week. And some people, it doesn't happen because the danger of having this wonderful kind of experience is that once you've had it one time, you want it to happen again. And that desire is called longing, and that has a lot of attachment in it. This is why I've said, and you'll hear me say it more, before you sit, make the determination that your job as a meditator is just to observe. Not to expect something to happen, not to wait for something to happen, because all of those have craving in them. You have to make up your mind, I don't care what happens next. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I don't have any control over this stuff anyway. So, let go of the longing. It will happen more quickly when you do that. And as I said, I'll tell you to go sit again after you have the fruition. And you're still doing the same thing. You're still using the 6 R's. You're still starting with the equanimity and then going to neither perception nor non-perception. And when your mind is pure enough, you'll get to a state that this experience occurs again. You feel more and more relief. You start to see those little bubbles arise and pass away, but there's a bunch of them now. They arise and pass away very quickly, and you'll have more joy. Now, what's happened is you have become a sakadagami. It's called a once-returner. That means you're going to have one more lifetime before you get off the wheel of samsara. It can be a lifetime in the Deva Loka, it can be a lifetime as a human being, but just one more lifetime. Lust and hate become less. Okay? You still can have some. I had one man that got really angry at me and he said, I still have anger. I said, yeah, you do, but it's not going to last as long. You're going to see it more easily and you'll start to understand, why am I causing myself so much suffering? And you'll let it go. And your lust for things becomes much less. So this happens. I congratulate you and then say, good, go do some more. Go sit. And your understanding of how this process works becomes even better. And your perception of how things works becomes more clear. Then you have another experience, and this is called the fruition, where this is really set, and you really do understand very well. You start to become more and more happy with your daily life. Things that used to make you really upset might only just annoy you a bit. And if that happens, and this can all happen on this retreat, I want to remind you that when you follow these directions and follow them closely, these things can happen for you. So, you have another experience, and this is called Anugami. Now, an Anugami is someone that has given up all hatred and lust. I had one little woman in Malaysia that she became an Anugami with fruition. And she started walking around and she said, I don't have any thoughts in my mind. I don't have any kind of distractions in my mind. All I have is loving kindness. My mind is real collected. And I'm very mindful. So this is a very nice state to be in. When you get to be an Anugami, your collectedness of mind becomes very strong. You'll be able to sit by making a determination. You'll be able to sit in the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness for as long as you make that determination. Up to 7 days. Takes practice to get there. One of my students, she was an Anugami. She was sitting for 12 hours without moving and getting up just like a flower opening up. So she said, yeah, I sit for 12 hours. It's good. What should I do next? So I said, okay, sit for 23 hours. I just picked that number out. I thought it was cute. And she did. She sat for 23 hours without moving, without any pains in her body at all, without any consciousness arising. And she got done with that and came to me and she said, well, I just did it. And I said, good. How's your mind feel? Really good. What do you think the advantage of sitting like that is? And she gave me the same answer that Deepama gave me. She was renowned as an Anugami. Relief. You don't have any kind of disturbance in your mind at all. There's no consciousness.
That'll do it.
That'll do it. But I have quite a few students that are becoming Anugamis in Indonesia. That's one of the reasons that I'm not going back there anymore, anytime soon anyway. And I told them if they make the determination that they're going to sit for a long period of time, they have to make a little note and put it in front of them so their family doesn't get upset. Because you're not going to feel a heartbeat. You're not breathing. Your body stays alive by itself. But it can really shake somebody up and take them to the hospital and start beating on their chest and trying to get their heart beating again and all of these kind of things. You have to let your family members know, just leave me alone, I'm fine. There's no problem. I had one man that he became an Inugami, and he went home and he told his son, he said, "Do you want to sit with me?" He said, "Yeah." So they sat, and finally he got up and started looking around, and he couldn't find his son. He started looking for him. He said, "I thought you were going to sit with me." He said, "I did, Dad. You sat for 4 hours. I can't sit that long." Your mind becomes more and more pure with, and you start letting go of more and more dukkha with each of these stages that you go through. Now, I have been asked on a lot of retreats, okay, has any of your students become an arahat? No, not yet. Why? I don't know. We'll wait and see. I have some students that are really serious about doing the meditation and becoming arahats, and they are working towards that. The first retreat I gave on Bali, this man came. He was half Indonesian, half Dutch. He spoke 5 or 6 different languages. For the last 10 years, he had been very, very studious and doing a lot of meditation. He had great concentration. He had real deep understanding of the Dhamma. And he saw one of my YouTubes and he went, "That's what I've been missing. That relaxed step." So before he came to the retreat, he had done a self-retreat for 5 days. The first day that I talked with him, he'd become a Sotapanna. First day of the retreat. Next day he had fruition. And he didn't get excited about it at all. He was just like, yeah, okay. So he kept sitting. By the end of the retreat, and this is just a 10-day retreat, he had become an Inugami with fruition. And I started talking to him about it's time to take on the robes. And he agreed, but he said he had some financial things that he had to take care of first before he could become a monk. But I think by the time I get back to Indonesia, whenever that happens to be, that he will be a monk. It'll be real interesting to see if he'd become an arahat or not. Amazing. These things are entirely possible. Okay? Follow the directions. Use the 6 R's. Smile. Stay with your object of meditation as long as you can. When your mind gets restless, bring up a feeling of tranquility. I don't care what jhana you're in. Now, when a hindrance arises, you're not in that state anymore. Now you're just in regular consciousness. And you have to use the 6 R's until that disappears. So using the 6 R's, you just have to use it one time and bring up the feeling of tranquility. The restlessness will disappear fairly quickly. And then stay with your object of meditation for as long as you can. The oak trees are starting to get me. So, believe me when I say that when I was in Indonesia, there was a retreat for 42 people. 60% of those people attained Nibbana. 60%. It is possible. Don't try to make it happen, but follow the directions as I've given them. You will be successful. There's great benefits that you're going to experience more and more as you keep your 5 precepts when you get off retreat. As you don't break them, all of a sudden there's all kinds of benefits that just start popping up. Really nice things that can happen for you. One of the advantages of keeping the precepts is it is a protection for you. You will not die a sudden death, being hit in an accident, or no premature death. Okay? This is really true. When you die, you're going to die a natural death, and there's not going to be any confusion in your mind. So there's a lot of real good advantages of keeping the precepts. And in this country, talking about morality is not one of the favorite things that people like to hear, but they don't see the advantage of doing it. It's just goody-goody Sunday school kind of knowledge that they have. You will see for yourself, the more you keep the precepts, the easier life becomes. The more fun you start to have. It really does work this way. So I've been talking for a long time. Yeah.
Can you say a bit more about mind as the object of meditation?
Just watch what's happening. Okay? Just watch what mind does. If you see disturbance coming, 6 hours before it gets there. If you can. Now, if you keep that longing for some kind of special thing to happen, you're going to have a lot of restlessness coming up. You can't long for things to happen because you're identifying with it, you're putting too much energy into it, and that causes a restlessness to arise. So, you 6R one time, back away, don't try so hard, bring up that feeling of tranquility, and just watch. And it'll fade away pretty quick. Every hindrance, when it arises, has I am that attached to it. That's why it's a hindrance. It stops you from doing the true meditation. Yeah.
On the same note, similar question. So when you're watching the rising and fall of the individual consciousnesses, would then my meditation change to mind and no longer equanimity?
It can. It's going to do what it's going to do.
Okay. And at that point, just bring in a tranquility so that because...
Yeah, that's fine.
Should each sitting session start with the 6 directions?
That's a tricky question. When you first start, yes, because it helps your mind become calm. If you can go directly to just watching mind, you can do that. It's up to you. But I found it real helpful to start with, sometimes I even have people start with loving kindness for 2 minutes in each direction, and then their mind just naturally jumps to that. It's up to you how you do it. These are all suggestions. They're not written in stone. Okay? Yeah.
When you're talking about the wiggle, you start to notice a wiggle and then relax.
Right.
Is the timing on that pretty critical?
Well, as soon as you see any movement at all, the faster you relax into that, the less chance it has to come up and build into something big.
So relax into whatever it's
Yeah.
becoming?
Yeah. Now, sometimes people will see lights and they'll see colors and all of these kind of things. Just 6 are those. I'll ask you questions about lights and I'm tricky. You have to answer by actually experiencing what I'm talking about, because it happens in a particular way, but it's not something you can think you know what the answer is. It's something you have to see.
So Bhante, with Michelle's question, she asked about starting with the 6 directions. Were you directing that to her specifically, or everybody here?
That's why it gets tricky. Some people really need it. And some people have real trouble just getting into the cessation of perception, or neither perception nor non-perception. They just can't do it right at the start. If you have trouble getting into that, then do the 6 directions for a couple minutes. Settle your mind down, and it will jump into that by itself.
So I'm saying, are you addressing that to everyone in the room, or just to...
I think I just answered that. It depends on the individual.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Some people, they can't do it. They have to do the 6 directions first. But I cut it down so it's only a couple minutes after you become a Sotapanna. Because that just helps your mind settle for a moment, and then naturally it will just go into that other state. There are some few people that can just go straight into that state, and that's fine. It's not written in stone that you have to do the 6 directions every time. But if you see you're having trouble getting into just watching mind, then back off and do the 6 directions.
Likewise, if something comes up that seems like it needs forgiveness, is that just something we can just kind of insert into a sitting?
You're in control.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
But you're really not.
Yeah, you're really not there. But you make a decision. So I've gone through each one of these different stages. And this is how it generally happens. But there are some people that they get to the 4th jhana and all of a sudden the cessation occurs. It's not written in stone that you have to go through each one of these different stages. It can happen anywhere from the first jhana on. Not very often, I have to admit, but I have had students that just got to the fourth jhana and all of a sudden they had a cessation. And what did I tell them to do? After they got done, then I had them do all the other jhanas. Yeah.
Bhante, during the time of the Buddha, it seems that so many people became awoke just by hearing the Dhamma. What do you think in modern world it's not really like that?
There are some people that become sotapanna by hearing the Dhamma, but they have a little dust in their eye. They don't have very much. They understand deeply and listen attentively to the talk. But to get to the higher stages, during the time of the Buddha, there was ascetics that went to him and they just heard him talk about what craving is and what dependent origination is, and while they're listening, they're doing it. And they've already got deep concentration. They just needed to pull up their mindfulness a little bit. They became arahats. But they did a lot of work before they got there. Oh, sorry. You have to raise your hand a little higher.
They're all kind of tied up, and I'm trying to understand like what the ultimate Buddhist cosmology is in relation to God, or to the idea that
There is no relation with God.
well, I've heard that one gets to a perception that everything is nothingness, and then beyond that, one gets to the perception that everything is everythingness.
No, that's not right. That's not Buddhism. That's a little bit of Hinduism or Christianity thrown in to try to not get you so you don't experience the Nibbana, which is an unconditioned state.
So there's some place that one goes during this little moment where
There is no consciousness. How do you know whether you go there or not?
you don't, but it's probably the same place we go when we sleep, right?
Not even close.
I mean,
You're going to an unconditioned state. That's what Nibbana ultimately is. The supermundane Nibbana is. It's an unconditioned state. How can we use only conditioned words to describe something that's unconditioned? It's beyond words. It's not nothing, but it is unconditioned. And an interesting thing that I started realizing a few years ago is every thought, every word that we use is conditioned. Okay? It's all concepts that we talk about. But Nibbana has no concepts in it. How can you describe that? The idea of God is a lot of people are praying to God to have things happen and all of that sort of thing. That doesn't, yeah, but that doesn't have anything to do with the ultimate. The reason I was very much attracted to Buddhism from the very start was the self-responsibility you have to have. Not looking for outside influence, looking for insight. The first book I ever wrote was on forgiveness, and I named it The Only Way Out is In. And that's the truth. I was telling some of the people today that I had a student that was doing very well with his meditation, and one day he came to me and he said, you know, all of your Dhamma talks, all of these things that you're saying is exactly right, but it's not even close to the truth. It's not close to the direct experience, because it's beyond concepts. And that's really true. One of the things I've noticed, especially with Buddhists that are just beginning with Buddhism, is they start taking words and books on Buddhism and setting them in stone, like that's the way it has to work. But it's not true. When you have a direct experience, you won't be able to describe it very easily. It's going to be hard to put it into words. But you'll know that something really good happened. And your mind starts to get more uplifted all the time. I did straight Vipassana for 20 years. I did many, many retreats. And not just short retreats. I was doing 3-month retreats, 8-month retreat, 2-year retreat. And always, when I got done, I was ready to let it go. That's enough. I don't need any more right now. And I started talking to other people, and all they were talking about was how difficult it was, how much pain there was, how hard it was to do, and the culture shock of getting off retreat and getting back into regular life. Very difficult. When people do a retreat with me, they start talking about, geez, I wish it was longer. I really had a lot of fun with this. And when they go home, they're taking the retreat with them. They're having more balanced mind with their daily activity. And that's a major difference. I wrote a book that you'll be able to get to one of these days called Life is Meditation, Meditation is Life. And what I try to get across is it's not just about sitting. It's about living. Do you have hindrances arise in your daily activity? Do you have likes and dislikes arise in your daily activity? Well, 6 are it. Don't get caught up in it. Keep your practice going all the time. And you'll see the advantages of that. Smiling is truly a wonderful thing. People in Asia, they're afraid to smile out in the public because if somebody sees me smiling, they'll think I'm crazy. And they really believe that. And what I've been telling them is, you're not crazy, they are, for even considering that. What happens when you smile to somebody? They smile back. Well, aren't you giving your loving kindness to other people when you do that? Isn't it really worthwhile to keep your smile going as much as you can? Your mind stays uplifted. Your mindfulness is really sharp, and it's easy to see when you start getting confused and letting go and becoming suffering. So keep your smile going as much as you can. I just got through being on an airplane for a long time. And we had to wait for the plane and all of this kind of stuff. So I started people watching. And it's great fun to watch kids when they're in the airport. Because mom and dad they're stressed out. But the kids are playing. And it's great to watch them. And it makes me smile. It makes me happy to see that. It's better that than worrying about what time we're going to get there, what time is the plane going to be. Oh no, we have to wait another hour. To me, it's a so what? I get to see these kids having fun, driving their parents crazy, and that makes me laugh. That makes me really appreciate being a monk. Okay, any other question? Okay, let's share some merit then. Oh, that's better. I should have done that a long time ago. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we've thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May the long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu.